Hello, sweeties. So we're back with some more enlisted. Um, the game capture is still just not working. I don't know why. Um, or maybe it is. Hold on. Am I stupid? No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, I thought I checked it. Anyway, so yeah, we're just gonna keep doing this. We're gonna continue with where we left off, and then the dailies today are easy peasy. Should just be wrapping up 3 flamethrower kills, 2 battles is pretty much it. We'll see how it goes. I wonder if I will finish this battle pass before this season ends. I don't think I will. 9 days left. Maybe I will. I really doubt it though. Kind of funny, like I went from finishing every single one to I haven't finished one in like months now because they've just not been very good. Though I guess it is always worth it for the free gold. Yeah, maybe I should have been playing it here and there every now and then. Whoops. But whatever. Yeah, 30 semi-auto, 8 enemies, 5 enemies. That should be easy as pie to do in a normal match. If we get conquest again, maybe I'm fucked in the ass because that was what happened last time. Super annoying. Um. Anyway, I'm gonna shut my door, and we will start. Probably looking at another hour-ish today, and then I will go do productive things. All right.
Total national capacity of installed power. However, when we consume now, we are consuming only the maximum peak. I mean, when the blackout happened, we were consuming just 25, 27 gigawatts. So we have much more capacity. We never reached the peak. The maximum peak in 2024 in consumption was about 40, and we have 130 gigawatts installed.
Okay, so the most demand ever last year of the 130 of potential was 40.
Yeah.
And earlier this week we reached 23, which is only half of the
That's it.
maximum.
That's it.
So why was there? Of course, we don't have definitive, but how much of the energy was from the renewables of that 23 when it went down?
If you add up solar photovoltaic and wind, it was about 70%, 70, 75%. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And then the problem is that they are, as you know, intermittent
big
energies.
conquest.
I mean, they talk also
Great.
hydro as renewable energy, and it's a renewable energy. But the difference with solar and wind is that hydro is not intermittent. It's predictable. It's a predictable source.
It's like a combined cycle natural gas plant.
That's
kind
it.
of. You
That's
can turn it on and off when you need it.
They are much prepared to be smooth, reliable, and supporting the whole system. I mean, they have a lot
As
of
long as
finance.
there's rain.
Yeah, that's it. And this year we have had a lot of rain in Spain. All the dams were full, and they were able to turbine and to generate electricity as much as they have in the historic period.
Ooh, that's a big
they
drop.
were not installing I mean, they were not generating the maximum, but there was a lot of renewable energy, and there was a lot of intermittent energy given to the network. So that's why we were exporting to the 3 countries with which we have interconnections, international connections. And this is what happens. I mean, something has happened that has unbalanced the network. And the problem of the networks is that we need a very teeny deviation in frequency or in voltage.
Shit, I'm not gonna get to it in
problem.
time.
Like
Oh
in
yeah, I will.
Houston,
Hell
we
yeah.
have a problem. I mean, we are working here in 50 hertz or 50 cycles per second. In the US, you are in 60. But here in 50, in all Europe, we have 50 cycles per second. If you deviate plus minus 0.1%, this is a problem. If you deviate plus minus 0.2%, this is a big problem, and the system starts warning what happens. If it is plus minus 3.3
It's an interesting texture on it.
then you have to switch off many elements for security reasons. Among them, nuclear power plants.
What does that mean, cycles per second? But explain to us how that works.
The electricity is given in alternate form. I mean, it's not direct current, it's alternate current. And 50 cycles means that the alternate goes from positive to negative in a cycle, in
Okay.
sinusoidals.
Let me bump the volume up on this, and then turn down the volume on. Well, it's already good.
Cycle,
Yeah,
50
waveform,
times
yeah.
in a second. So
Okay.
if this frequency changes from 50 to 49.95, then we have a big problem.
And was it a decision to shut it down, or the 49.85 variation actually caused something physical to?
Many systems are automatically programmed to defend themselves. Because
Okay.
if they deviate in frequency and they deviate in voltage, or something drops simultaneously because other source is prepared to, is generating more than they can, drops and is giving energy more than it can deliver to the network, it could explode. It could have a problem. So they are prepared to disconnect themselves.
It literally could explode?
Yes, of course. Very heavy systems, they may explode when they have a lot of inertia. They have machines that, they have motors, engines that they may weigh tens of tons, and this is a huge weight turning very fast in the power plants, and then if something happens and they cannot control it, it could burn. Even the high power cables could burn. So that's why they are so well protected.
So what would have happened, just hypothetically, at that moment when there was 27 gigawatts of demand in the country of Spain, that there was a mandate or a requirement that 50% of that had to be from stored hydro or combined cycle natural gas plants, that there was a reserve that was easily dispatchable, turned on and turned off as a stabilizer. Would that have minimized the risk of what happened, or was that irrelevant?
No, it's neither irrelevant, but the situation is that combined cycle or nuclear or even hydro, they are synchronous systems, and they have a lot of inertia, so they tend to not to deviate. If they feel a small deviation in the system, they will make whatever is possible to force themselves to keep the 50.
So the if all the renewables were supposed to be at 50, but they dipped to 49.85, the natural gas or the nuclear or hydro can quickly go to 50.015 to offset it, like instantly.
That's the difference. I was talking with Antonio Turiel, you know that, because he has been in Franklis. He said something quite clear. The inverters of the renewable system are mainly of photovoltaic systems, because wind is operating in a slightly different form. But renewables in photovoltaic systems, the inverter, which is changing the direct current they are generating from the modules, solar modules, and giving alternate current at 50 hertz to the network, and they are injected into the network.
Why is this
so
thing
they
so
have
damn
a
slow?
system to accommodate and to synchronize with the 50 hertz in exactly in the same position. But they are so good that if the frequency slightly change, they adapt. Instead of rejecting, like the heavy synchronous equipments like hydro or nuclear or combined cycle, they resist any change from the 50 hertz. On the contrary, the inverters, when they see a small change, they immediately adapt to this small change, and this could have added the problem to the problem instead of solving the problem, instead of minimizing the problem.
So instead of a balancing feedback or a negative feedback, it became a positive feedback or a reinforcing feedback.
Exactly. This is one of the possible reasons. There are many other arguments. The plant of more than 50 megawatts, the sudden fall, which are they still investigating, of 15 gigawatts from the network. I mean, nobody knows who fell down at such level. I mean, they are start analyzing now, and it will take days because there are several thousand nodes in the Spanish Peninsula, and they have to analyze millisecond by millisecond what happened and who was first and why it was first or something like that. This is what they are analyzing at that moment. So when everything went back and went down, and we have the blackout, the first thing after 4-6 hours that entered into the system and took reference from the links we had with Morocco and with France. There were still links, and they could synchronize with Morocco and France thanks to these connections, and they started to operate first with combined cycle and then with hydro. I mean, it was basically in the first hours of the morning of April 29th, the main entrance into the network to reestablish the power in the country. It was due to mainly the combined cycle and to the hydro. Later on, renewables have entered, and we still have at zero level the 7 nuclear power reactors, which are the more complex and the ones that have to be treated much more carefully.
Are those back online, the nuclear reactors, as of today, Thursday, May 1st?
Not as far as I know, not yet.
Okay. So
What the hell?
This gets into territory that you and I have covered deeply in our private conversations over the last 20 years.
Okay.
We are both pro-renewable, but with an asterisk. That when you add renewable energy to a system, you can't assume that adding 1% from a base of
These guys
zero
don't have pistols?
has the same
I don't-
benefits as adding from 60 to 61% of a system, because the full system needs to be analyzed, and then our yours and mine and our friends and colleagues. Broader point is we can't use renewable energy, solar and wind and the like, to power a 19 terawatt system with our current
They don't even have
massive
semi-autos.
consumption. And like you talked about earlier in Madrid, people just assume that there will never be a grid failure because they've built the lifts and the hospitals and the supermarkets and the cash stations and everything else, assuming
Honestly,
there
I'm just
will
gonna-
never be a blackout.
They can keep
so,
this point.
So let me ask you this: you are you operate a solar PV plant.
Yep.
And over the years, especially this year, you've told me that you have to pay the regulator or the government on a sunny day because there is so much solar PV electricity being fed into the grid that in a supply and demand market system, the prices go below zero. Can you explain that situation and why that's important?
Yeah, that's quite anomalous, but it's also another symptom, which is very important. I mean, we have been receiving from the system I'm going to receive. I mean, the people that like me are operating a plant of 1 megawatt plant, which is
these
very
guys
small,
suck.
but 1 megawatt is important. We are receiving every day the prices, the wholesale prices. We will be paid the day next, hour by hour, in the 24 hours of the day, the next day. So we can be prepared to know how much money are we going to earn. If you see the list of the daily list of this in the last 3 months, for instance, you will see that most of the days, the system is saying that they will pay you, in not all the days, but especially the sunny days, they will pay you negative, which means that if you inject 1 megawatt hour in the network at 13 hours, when the price is minus 1 euro per megawatt megawatt hour, then you will have to pay to the system 1 euro for each megawatt hour you inject into the network, which is something which is counterintuitive. I mean, it's something that people doesn't understand, but this it implies that they have plenty of renewable energy now, because this doesn't happen during the nights. In the nights, you can get even, I mean, from -1 in the day, you can get up to 100 euros per megawatt hour that is consumed.
So what power sources does Spain use in the nighttime mostly?
In the nighttime, the main base load is nuclear.
Except right now, all the plants are down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's
But
it.
then
So,
what else?
so there is now combined cycle, and there is a combined cycle. There are some others like, for instance, hydro. We have a lot of hydro now because all the dams are full, and then the consumption now is minimum. Now during the nights it could go 20 gigawatts or even less than 20 gigawatts. They can cover it just with a combined cycle, for instance, plus hydro. But they are making now. Now they are introducing now. Yesterday the president is a lady. The president of Red Eléctrica de España is the Spanish regulator, which is under criticism, very heavy criticism, but this is an organism which is one of the most advanced in managing renewable networks and renewable penetration in the world. I mean, they are very advanced, but they made a mistake. I mean, somebody has made a mistake, and they are assuming and they are investigating what has happened. And she said that now they could finally restore and introduce again back the renewables, and they have introduced back renewables before the nuclear power plants. So, so to say that renewables are safe as well, and they are not necessarily the main responsible. The main responsible is maybe the lack of backup of renewables.
Oh, I already got the
And
damn
because, for
daily.
instance, there
Damn
is a
it.
very interesting indication. There is a magazine famous in Spain called Energías Renovables, Renewable Energies. This month, days before the blackout, they will say the last piece, the last chip that still remains in the network. And the last piece is a full number dedicated to massive storage for the renewables. So that means that they already knew that without massive storage for renewables, they may have a problem of reliability, and they may have a problem of security.
And didn't I read somewhere that you said that there's 130 gigawatts of installed capacity in Spain, but that there's another like 200 gigawatts or some huge number of proposed solar projects? Is that right?
50 gigawatts. 50 gigawatts are still in the queue of promoters that they are still trying to inject into the network. This has already created a huge problem to the government, because first they need to study carefully in which nodes they could inject that huge amount of energy. I mean, if we have 130 gigawatts, we are consuming average 28 and maximum 40, so that means that we have a lot of installed power that is idle most of the day. Among that, for instance, one of the problems we had is that almost all the combined cycle gas-fired plants, they were off. I mean, not off even in pre-warming, they were off in cold. Off.
So I also wrote about this 15 years ago. This was one of my chapters of my PhD thesis, is applying variability to energy returns. And when it's sunny and windy and everything is great, yes, but in these situations, you either need storage or battery or some complementary source. But if those complementary sources can't make money, no one's going to build them, and they're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
So, like, why would someone today decide to build a natural gas plant in Spain if they see all these renewables coming online? And if they do build it, how much would they have to charge to make money? Because half the time it's going to be idled, right?
No, they have been. I mean, in fact, they had a big problem because most of the gas plants, they were installed when renewables were not so high, so they were leaving them aside. The more and more renewables enter into the systems, combined cycle, they were leaving aside. And now we found out that there were very, very little of them. I mean,
you killed my boy.
I don't know whether I have over there whatever is installed there in combined cycle, but they have about 50 gigawatts or something like that. So what happens is that they are losing money. I mean, because they lose even more money when they had to keep them for a fast response in case of a fall. In case of a fall, you can keep the plant in pre-warm situation, which means that you can, upon an order, you can put the gas plant 1 gigawatts or whatever it is into the system in minutes.
Classic
But if it is in
short
cold
ass
stop,
match.
then you may need 4 hours to pre-warm and then to get into the system. And this is what happens. I mean, this curiously is a coincidence because when we had the blackout, it took.
I always hate these short ass matches, man. Let's see how many semi-auto I got. Gosh dang it, come on. Okay, I can't look at it until I do that. Great. Yay, another gun I'll never use. Woo. Alright, but that means we're in the home stretch of getting the second Lanny 50, which I will use. Alright, 9 out of 30 and 10 with a grenade. That kind of sucks. Yeah, we probably won't finish this battle pass the way that's going. Yeah. That's kind of unfortunate, honest to goodness. The life. World. How much gold do you even get it from it anyway? Let's do some math real quick. So 300, 600. You gain 50 there. You gain 100 if you finish it. Huh. That is good. It is good to gain 100. That means 4 seasons you get essentially an extra slot when they go on sale. That's pretty good. Not bad, to be honest. My mom's sending me jobs. Let's see what they're like. Usually they're like insane. They don't. That's an entry level position, huh? Hmm. Could be cool. Alright, well. Back to this.
Took minimum
check that
4
out
to 6 hours to replace the system, and it was because the combined cycle started entering gradually because they were the most reliable ones. But
Man.
it took 6 hours to them.
So
I'm actually kind of bummed now. I kind of wish I did do it. It sucks they don't post like what events are gonna happen over the month, because like last month, for example, I didn't play it at all because there were no good events, and now here's a good event and there's 9 days left. So I thought there would just be no good events again, so I just haven't been fucking touching it. I guess that's on me. Missed out on 100 gold. What a silly goose. Because, like, I feel like at this point I might as well finish it. I'm 1/3 of the way, but now I physically can't finish it. Because I can only do 3 of these every day. So 3 times 9, what is that, 18? So I would literally be, like, right here if I maxed it out every day, which sounds terrible. So yeah, just a little too late. Unfortunate. Anyway, we'll turn on join any army. Get that out of the way. Try to do our 10 hand grenades, I guess. Because we literally just have to do a match. So yeah.
if you had combined cycle plants either turned on or in the warm, not fully shut down, it might not have prevented this blackout, but the blackout would have been shorter. You would have gotten things back online sooner.
That's probably, of course, if they have been in pre-warm, but they were not.
So how close were we to a much worse situation? And maybe you could talk a little bit about your time when you worked as a telecom engineer in Baghdad, when there was a worse situation.
Well, that was, I mean, we had When the war starts between Iran and Iraq, first Iraq bombed Khorramshahr and Abadan and Khorramshahr, two big refineries in the Persian Gulf. And then the Iranians, the day next, they started bombing power plants in Baghdad and in many other Iraqi cities. So we went blackout, completely blackout for 3 days, with the skies fully black of smoke from the tanks of the fuel oil tanks of the petrol plants. I mean, from the power plants. So when you start to be in a
good map.
complete blackout,
Been a while since I've been on
it is a disaster. I mean, the first priority,
Moscow,
for instance, is to
Germany.
get water.
Kind of crazy.
Apparently, the Iraqi government that had already been the one that planned the first attack on Iranians, they had already prepared somehow. They had prepared somehow the situation. And for instance, 3 months or 1 month after the war started, we started to make. To give electricity to several suburbs, perhaps 2 hours a day, to one suburb, then the other one, another 2 hours or something like that. When you have 2 hours electricity in a country that is in blackout, the first thing is just to pump up water to the tanks in the roof of you, into the rest of your house, because most of the houses in Baghdad, they were 1 or 2 stories. This is one. Second, petrol stations don't work, and then the queues in the petrol stations are huge. The people start becoming nervous. Then they are rationing old plates and even plates 1 day each. So there is a rationing in the transport. Food, I mean, the freezing change of the food in the transport is deteriorated. So 60-70% of the food system and channels, they arrive to the markets already rotten. So that because the war happened in September, and in September there is 40 Celsius centigrades, and then there's a lot of hot, and then most of the food was destroyed, and there were many other things that they were disturbing the normal life, and it lasted for years. I mean, I understand that still today in 2025,
oh, that's a semi-auto gun. I should have just
brownouts
farmed
from time to time. So it's a dramatic situation because nothing works. Nothing works. Traffic lights in Madrid or in Spain, in Barcelona, whatever it is, generate a chaos because the people is accustomed that the traffic lights are working. In Baghdad, they were not, so they were much flexible. When you arrive to a square or something like that, they were giving way each other slightly in a very crowded place, but they manage better than we manage.
There's so many lessons here. I mean, I wanted to talk to you just as a friend about this half-day blackout that happened. But really underpinning this conversation is the deep theme that you and I have been discussing for 20 years, which is energy blindness. We just don't see how we swim in a sea of energy services every day. And then another message is, having experience with brownouts and knowing how to deal with intermittence in your own life and the structures in your society is a blessing. It's a training. It's education, and Western cities and cultures don't have that at all.
There are many people in the world that they are accustomed to that, but we, the Europeans and the United States, we are believing that this will never happen to us, and it's very simple for us to happen. I mean, if one day we run out of diesel, or we have a problem for serving diesel, I mean, who is going to fill the supermarkets? I mean, in the big cities, in the big mega cities, they are not thinking. I mean, there are no gasoline or they are not electric heavy trucks.
But we're unlikely to run out of diesel. What we're going to do is run out of the affordable quantities of diesel that we've become used to.
That's it. And then some Europeans and US countries, probably they could manage to still to be served.
Get fucked.
Many other countries that still have diesel today, they will start facing problems because diesel will not arrive, and then they will have problems to make their normal lives and to find trucks taking essentials.
So back to the blackout.
Right, 4 out of 10.
What can be done? Like this may have been a big learning experience for Spain, for Europe, for everyone, because of what you said. If it's likely that the little bit of variation between the
That was going
how many
quick.
cycles per second, if that ends up being the reason why this happened, more backup batteries and such, and or a higher percentage of fully on or fully dispatchable combined cycle plants or nuclear or hydro.
Yeah.
But what's the broader answer here, looking ahead decades?
That's a very good question for which I have no any definitive answer. I mean,
But you have some expert speculation, so
yeah.
please.
Okay. Well, we can presume that. I mean, I have made calculations, but it will be long to explain of how much backup in batteries. I mean, we have two ways to store electricity in massive form. Either pump up hydro. I mean, we have a lower dam and upper dam. So we pump the water from the lower to when there is excess of electricity, of renewables, for instance, we pump up the water from the lower to the upper. So we convert kinetic into potential, and then the potential we convert back when we need it. We convert back in kinetic by putting the turbines in movement. So this is one way. But in Spain we have 4 gigawatts of store, I mean, pump up hydro. This is too little. I mean, in case of if we want to have 100% renewable electric world, this is very little. I mean, for a country which is privileged in dams and in hydro. I mean, in hydro we are a dry country, but we have a lot of dams because we have a mountainous country, but it is not enough. The second one, it should be batteries. But batteries are expensive. The most well-known batteries are
Right.
lithium ion. I mean, ion lithium batteries, and they are very expensive. I mean, what I want to ask people and to beg people is just to make calculations. I mean, do the math, as Tom Murphy used to say. Do the math. I mean, don't trust the people. Do the math. When you do the math, you realize that you need such an amount of lithium batteries that it will be brutally costly to have renewables. Now we are presuming now in Spain many people from the renewable world, pro-renewables, they are saying we have the cheapest form of energy nowadays. But this is a trick because they are not calculating. They are excluding that from massive storage, from the required massive storage to make this system absolutely stable. And this is what I was telling with Charlie Hall in the book in 2013, and nobody listened. This is exactly what we need: a massive storage. But massive storage is brutally expensive today to cover the needs of a country like ours, which is ultra consumerist.
That dovetails with my work showing that for most technological processes in our world, we're adding 1,000 or more units of fossil energy to the machines to do things that humans used to do manually or with draft labor. And we can do that, and renewables can do a lot of that too. But the cost, if the cost double or triples, almost all of those benefits go away. So these processes in our world are incredibly sensitive to cost. So what was the example you used recently about a horse and a chariot and the horses?
Yeah, the chariot and the horses is that before having installed all these photovoltaic plants or the wind power plants, we should have asked in parallel, why don't we put massive storage with them to give them stability and to avoid that the system could stabilize when we reach a certain level of penetration of renewables. And they didn't do that because the government was only interested, the government and the promoters, of course, and the solar PV sellers or something like that, they were also only interested in installing more and more and more without backup. And this is something which is not rational. I mean, but this has happened not only in Spain, it has happened everywhere in the world. I mean, they have installed and they have made the prices. I mean, when we calculated the ROI, I mean, energy return on energy investment, They
Shit.
never. I mean, even the most recognized experts in ROE for photovoltaics, they always took out the massive storage as a cost of the renewables, and this is a mistake. I mean, they have to be integrated and then see if it is worth the overall cost to make this source stable. Let's see if it is worth.
So the focus was on the exciting new technology of the solar or whatever, which was the chariot, neglecting the fact that we need horses to pull the chariot, which is either complementary energy sources like natural gas at the same time or batteries or storage. And if you integrate all that, the full chariot and horses together, it's a different cost structure for society.
Yeah, that's it. It happens. I'll tell you a small story. We have been robbed. I mean, in our photovoltaic plant 2 weeks ago. They went in the night. They cut the cable. And they pull up. They pull the cable because it's very heavy. There are thousands of kilos, and they pull it from the underground ducts. They pull it with a tractor or with a 4x4, I mean a SUV, SUV. They pull it and then they took it away and they sell it because the price of the copper now in the black market is between 5 and 5 euros per
Man,
kilo.
these guys
Something like
suck.
that. So in one night they took 2,000, 3,000 kilos and they stole it. The second day they stole again, but they came from installing another photovoltaic plant. And in the 4x4 and Nissan Patrol, they put some part of the stolen copper of the previous plant they have stolen, and they put that, and they were about 200 kilos in the backside of the Nissan Patrol. And as there have been rains, I mean the excess of greed of the robbers made the Nissan Patrol to capsize and they could not take the cables out of the plant. So they cut our cables, but they could not take up. So that's the problem of being so greedy.
But it also is another small, maybe not small problem with decentralized energy, because they couldn't have cut the cables in a big natural gas plant probably, because there would have been security and other things. You just had the cranes and maybe that giant bull that roams around the forest in Extremadura.
Yeah. Well, in any case, we had alarm systems and they didn't work. I mean, probably they have inhibition. Systems to inhibit the alarms.
So, I mean, big picture, Pedro, when we look at our situation, I think once people remove their energy blinders and recognize how our modern lives, 8 billion humans, not evenly distributed, but in total 109 or 19 terawatts continuously, which is 190 billion 100-watt light bulbs turned on 24/7, is unsustainable. And once you start to learn about it, you think, well, fossil fuels are dirty, they are polluting the oceans and the biosphere, and they are depleting. And the average decline rate in the world is probably 25 to 30%, which we're offsetting by new discoveries and some new technology. But it is a bank account that we're drawing down rapidly, but treating it as if it were interest. So let's get some new alternative. Let's invent some complementary technologies to give us energy. There's that conversation, which is assuming everything else stays constant, how do we change our supply? The other conversation is, do we really need all these energy services and all this stuff to live happy and healthy lives? Maybe we can, as Jean-Marc Jancovici would say, sobriété, which in English would be restraint or sufficiency, and actually reduce our demand. What are your thoughts on all this?
I think Jancovici is right, and we have a problem ahead, very, very big problem ahead, because what happens now is that I would like to say that there is life with much more Soviet people. We are now, as you very well know, because we have been working with this data for years. You know that we are working like a machine, a 4,000 watts machine or 5,000 watts machine here in Spain, like
And 10,000 watts
10,000
where I
watts
live.
in the United States. So we are 100 volts, so incandescent bulbs on our head, 24 hours a day, and this is too much. We don't need that. Our metabolism is just one bulb of 100 watts. This is the physical metabolism. But now we cannot return so easily to these levels because we are naked apes, and we cannot live in winter absolutely naked. So it's very difficult.
If you lived where I live, absolutely naked in winter, you might not survive.
Yeah, that's it. But then what happened? And as Tad says, our common friend Tad says, if you live in Saudi Arabia without air condition, probably you won't survive neither. So we have been accustomed to live in places by using a lot of energy. Can we use less? Easy for me because now I am retiring from Madrid and living in the countryside, as you know, and I can live with very little. Less than 2,000 watts, probably 1,000 watts, and I can have life with dignity in 1,000 watts level, not in the 4,000 I'm now or in the 10,000 you are. But the problem is that more than half of the society is urban society. More than 5 billion people are now urban. They are
Urban.
They are urban, and they have no place to go back to the countryside, to go back and to live with water coming from springs without any pumps or something like that. It's not so easy to decrease in consumption when you have already built up a human construction which is incredibly big. It's what you call the giga machine. Or the tera machine. How do you call it?
The superorganism?
Superorganism. You
Yeah.
call it the super. The superorganism is very difficult. It is going to be very difficult to.
That dude's just out there, bro. Holy shit.
Go out of the cities. Go out of Sodoma.
So, while I have you, my friend, what other advice do you have for the viewers of this program?
We are proposing the great simplification, but in fact, this is something we have not yet achieved. It's not even me, not even myself, which I believe I am one of the most aware people about the problem coming, but still resist in a big city because I have family, friends,
Alright, I want to AFK, but I don't
links,
know.
everything. I am tied up very much to the big city, but I'm trying, honestly. Two of my sons are already quite well prepared going. There is nothing sure
Alright,
for
I'm gonna
anybody,
AFK.
but they are much better